everyone. Happy New Year's. I just thought I would send a video out because I was kind of inspired by a conversation I had recently with my friend Al, who is in town visiting with his lovely wife. And I dragged him into my bathroom of all places, which is where I am now, because in my medicine cabinet, I have in the door a bunch of great quotes. Almost all of them are spiritual quotes. But there's one in particular that I was showing him because it's my absolute favorite quote. And I thought that I would share it with you because, I don't know, I'm just inspired to share it and see if it affects anybody the way it affected me. By the way, my memory is getting a little bit worse, and sometimes I use words that I'm not meaning to use. So if you notice I use the wrong word, just don't be surprised. But this quote I printed out of Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And he wrote, Charles Robert Richet, who was a Nobel Prizeman in physiology, has declared, quote, "It is assumed that the phenomena which we now accept without surprise do not excite our astonishment because they are understood. But this is not the case. If they do not surprise us, it is not because they are understood, it's because they are familiar. For if that which is not understood ought to surprise us, we ought to be surprised at everything." Now, I don't know if you had the same experience I had when I read that. It was like, wow. But I know I've repeated it many times, and a lot of people are like, come again, say again. There's a lot of words in there, kind of. So let me redo it, but make it a little simpler. So when they say a phenomenon, let's think of something that we're all familiar with, like an apple. Okay, it's assumed that the phenomena, like an apple, which we now accept without surprise, do not excite our astonishment because they're understood. Of course, we all understand apples. But this is not the case. If apples don't surprise us, it's not because they are understood. It's because they are familiar. For if that which is not understood ought to surprise us, we should be surprised at everything. So if you break this apart a little bit and you think, okay, an apple, but we kind of understand that one, Sarah. Well, let's think about it. Like, okay, so we know there are lots of different types of apples and how you can crossbreed them, et cetera, how to grow them. Okay, then they're made of, different types of, okay, here goes my memory, atoms and molecules and so on and so forth. And then you break that down and you say, oh, okay, well now, atoms have electrons and nucleus and all that. Okay, oh, but wait a minute, when I was growing up, that we were told that was the smallest thing. Like, okay, the smallest thing in the universe is an atom, and inside there's electrons and a nucleus. Wow, isn't that cool? Well, shortly after they started publishing, like, hey, there's something called a quark that's even smaller, and it goes on and on. And so, we know so little. Like, we think we know so much as humans, and we do know a lot in our tiny little world. But if you start looking at everything like an apple, and you break it down and you say, hey, what is this? It's a bunch of electrons, it's a bunch of quarks, just a bunch of energy. Like, hang on, how do we really know what all the different types of energy there are, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, I don't know, that's not my area of expertise, but the answer is quite clear. Like, we don't know. We don't know an apple. And like Charles Richet said, if something like an apple is not understood, we should be surprised at everything. Everything. So ever since I read that quote and really kind of got into my spirituality, I just started noticing that when I pet my cat or something, my cat gets on my lap and I'm just in awe. Sometimes just watching this cat and looking at its paws and noticing how I have this cat, one of my cats she's like a funny kind of calico kind of thing, and she's got one side of her face is mostly black and the other side is mostly brown, with a lot of different colors mixed in. But on the black side, her whiskers are black, but one's white. And on the brown side, her whiskers are white, but one's black. Like, wow. You got to slow down and look at the world to notice those kinds of details. And when you do, you just go, whoa. Look at you, little sissy. Aren't you the cutest cat in the world with your funny little whiskers? And so I've noticed that as I've slowed down in life, and I guess this is the counselor coming out at me saying, hey, slow down in life. Don't trust these, books and articles that say, hey, you can meditate in 3 minutes a day. Yeah, you can. It's not going to help a lot. Like, go for walks. Spend 20 minutes of your walk just looking around and noticing as many details as you can. And if you're like, Sarah, I don't have time for a 20-minute walk. I've got kids, I've got jobs, blah, blah, blah. Okay, when you get in the car to go somewhere, don't turn on your phone. Don't turn on the radio. Don't turn on podcasts. Don't turn on the music. Just drive and be present. As Ram Dass would say, be here now. And when you do that, you just start noticing things like the whiskers and the paws and the leaves. It's just unbelievable. And the more time that we can find to get quiet and really look at the world around us, the more amazed we become. And for me, the more grateful I become. Just so grateful. And so people have been asking a lot, like, wow, ever since you got this really bad diagnosis, looks like glioblastoma, I'm not gonna have surgery, it looks like I could be out of here in short term. But you never know. They say, yeah, you seem so good. And I attribute that to my spiritual practice, because I look around and I see it all coming and going all the time. I'm out on my walks in silence in the fall, the summer, the winter, the spring. I'm watching it all coming and going all year long. Decades, the cats coming and going, and longer decades, people coming and going. Like, it's all just this huge, huge thing that's all working together. And I just honor it all. I honor it all. So I thought I'd just pass that along. I thought when Al and I were talking about that quote, I thought maybe other people would want to hear it too. So I hope you all have a great start to your new year. My memory is going a little bit, but otherwise I'm doing relatively well. And I'm going to be off treatment in a week for 3 more weeks. In a week I'll be off treatment for 3 weeks. And, probably feeling better and hopefully getting some of this memory back. So, all right, guys, Happy New Year's.